Today in the wood yard, we're sharpening chains. I have been asked by a lot of you for many months now for me to show you how I sharpen chains. Today is the day. It's going to happen right now. So I've got some saws here and I'm going to sharpen the chains. This saw right here, the chain has only been used twice, 2 cuts, 2 tankfuls, so it's not that dull, so this will be a real light touch-up. This one I purposely ran into the ground, yes. I actually cut some blacktop with it. It was a new chain. I only used it once, 1 or 2 tanks, but I wanted to get it dull so you can see the effects of sharpening the way I do it. So this one's pretty darn dull. This one back here is down to just the last bit of teeth. Probably the last sharpening I'm going to do on it. It's been cutting really good up to now, but I'm right down to nubs on it, so that's what's going to happen with that one. So here we go. Time to sharpen right now. So normally when I sharpen, I do not put my saws into a vise, and you'll see why in just a little bit. But for demonstration purposes, just for you, I'm doing this. I put it into a vise so that it's nice and solid. And the other ones I'm going to do right on the bench, and I'll show you how I do those, because that's the way I usually do it. But I'm going to show you kind of some close-ups of how I sharpen the teeth. I get as close as I can with this camera. I can get within about 2 inches, so you'll be able to see pretty darn good the effects of the sharpening that I do. And what I do is, I know blasphemy for a lot of you. A lot of you think that the only way to sharpen a saw is with a file. And I haven't used a file in 4 or 5 years. Seriously, I haven't. Oh no, I did once or twice when I was in the woods, and my sharpener, my little Dremel I have, the battery died on it. So I did use a file a couple times. And I can sharpen with a file. I just don't like to anymore. Now that I do this, it's way faster, way easier. So let's get going. Okay, a little bit first about the bits I use. This is what you want, Oregon stone bits. You can also get the Dremel ones, but they're the same thing. A 3-pack of these is about $6, like $5.95. So they're about $2 a piece, same as what a file costs. And I get the 7/32 because that's what fits my chain. If you got a smaller saw, a little, what I call a weenie saw, you're gonna, because you have smaller teeth, you're gonna want the right size bit. So this is 7/32, which is what works for my teeth on my chain. Don't buy these. The Timber Tough ones, I've bought these twice thinking that maybe I had a bad batch. They're crap. All they do when you start in on doing the sharpening, they come apart and they just shatter on you. They're terrible. You want the Oregon bits. This is what I get right here. Okay, so you got that part down pat. And the way they go into the Dremel is they just slide right in. This is a new one. I've only used this to sharpen once so far. And next question is going to come up right away. I know you're thinking this. How many sharpenings do I get out of a bit? Usually at least 3 to maybe as many as 6. It just depends on how dull your teeth are. If you've hit the ground, hit a rock or something. Because if you hit a rock and you actually take chips and chunks out of the front of your tooth, the top of the tooth, it's going to take a little bit more grinding, and then this wears down faster. But if it's a new chain, or a chain where if you're cutting really good clean wood where there's no dirt, no rocks, you're not hitting the ground at all, you can get 5 or 6 sharpenings out of one. And I leave them on for as long as I can until they start to get, I'll show you here. They start to get like this. They start to look like this, where they start to get the little bit of dents in there. They get rough. You can see the difference between those two. This is not good anymore because it's too small for the actual tooth space for getting the gullet, as Buchan says. You do have to get the gullet, and this does a great job of it. It does a really good job. I switched over to this because I was doing okay sharpening with a file. But it just takes so much time when you're sharp. Because I usually sharpen all 3 saws at the same time. I run all 3 and then I sharpen all 3. And, it takes quite a while. And I tried this, and the first time I did it, I thought that was fast. And then I got better and better and better at it. And now it's just a piece of cake. And I literally can sharpen my saws 3 or 4 times as fast with one of these than I can with a file. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, maybe you should try one of the Oregon chain sharpeners for the bench grinder type sharpeners. I thought about getting one, but this works so good, I don't really need to. The other reason I don't really want to is I never take the chains off. I sharpen them right on the saws. And you'll see in just a minute how fast it is. When I'm sharpening, it goes pretty darn quick, and it's just so easy. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about is safety. Yes, safety with sharpening, because the way I do it, you could lose an eye, you can go deaf, you can breathe in some nasty crap, and you can cut your hands. So here's what I do. I wear safety glasses all the time, and I have the ones that have the bifocals on it. And I can see really good up close. I'm actually nearsighted, which means I can see up close pretty darn good. I can see right about to here, but I like to be able to get focused in even closer. So I'm right down in there. So I'm seeing really how good a job I'm doing. The next thing I wear, because I am using a Dremel, which you will see in a second here, I do use a mask. Not because I'm afraid of COVID, because I already had it and I lived, so I'm not afraid of it anymore. So I wear a mask because a lot of dust comes up. I wear gloves, and I wear these slip-on cuff gloves like this. I wear earmuffs, and so when I'm suited up, this is what I look like when I am sharpening. Put it on real quick, and I'm going to grab the Dremel here. This is the one I'm using now. I actually have lots of them. I have 4 different Dremels, and I'm thinking of getting another one actually. So yeah, I got a stone bit on here, and that is what I use. So here we go. Okay, here we go. This is how fast it goes. I'm going to start right here, and I'll just show you. And I do this tooth, then I do this tooth, then I do this tooth, and I don't do them all. I don't do all one side at a time because I just know what I got to do. If you're first starting out, you might want to do all the same sides, but for me, this works. So as you can see, this tooth right here has got a rough edge, because I actually did, just for demonstration purposes, I actually cut into a piece of my blacktop outside, started up the saw and just kind of ran it in there, but you can see how this has got a rough edge. Here's another one here with a rough edge. So it was not too dull, but I dulled it just for demonstration purposes. So you can see these teeth, right, there's a little notch out of that one right there. So I'm going to sharpen that one right now so you can see. Okay, so I'm cutting here, and as you can see, the chain doesn't really move much, the bar doesn't move much, and I just kind of rub it lightly against the edge there. I put a black background so you could see it a little better. That little bit of smoke that you see that comes off, that's actually sawdust burning. You can kind of smell it when it burns. It's not anything other than that. Once in a while you might have a little bit of oil that smokes a little bit, but usually it's just the sawdust. And this was really hard to do because the camera is touching the Dremel here. I'm like literally 2 inches away, and I'm trying to see what I'm doing over the top while I'm sharpening and trying to get as close as I can so you can see what it does. But that's how it works. And these teeth were dull, so that's about how long it takes to sharpen a real dull tooth. So there you go. So you saw I just sharpened along the way there, just every other tooth, and they are cat claw sharp. That's what I like to call it, cat claw. You just touch them and you're immediately, it's got grip into your, it's gripping into your skin. You can just feel it. So they are sharp. And so yeah, that's how it works. So I just do the whole thing that way. So before I start, what I always do is I have a Sharpie, a red one is what I use, and I just mark a tooth like that. So I know where I started, where I end. That's all I do. Some guys use a crayon or something like that, but I find this red Sharpie works good. So I'll start here and I just go around, and I think 24-inch chain that I have here is 42 teeth, if I remember right. It's just the opposite, 24, 42. So I'll start right here, and so yeah, you saw how I did that. I'm just gonna start right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen this chain. This one hasn't been touched at all yet. This will be the first time I've sharpened it. I've cut 2 tanks with it, so it's a fairly new chain. And I'm going to do a whole sharpen. I'm going to do the whole chain. You can see how long it takes me. So I'm going to mark the tooth. That's where I'm starting, and I got 42 to do, so here we go. Done. How long did that take? That's about how fast it usually goes. So I just sharpened it. You saw that took 2 minutes, almost exactly 2 minutes and a second or two. So that's how fast it always goes. And this chain was pretty much the way most of them are. It wasn't too bad. If it's a tooth, if it's a chain that has teeth that are nasty from hitting a rock or the ground or something, it might take an extra 30 seconds. Maybe 3 minutes tops, and that's if it's really bad. Now, one of the things that come up that people say, oh, using a grinder, you're going to burn the tooth and you're going to take the temper out of it. I've never had a problem with that. I'm not touching them that long, and they're not, I mean, if you have one that's really bad, if you get a rounded tooth, that, you know, the tip of the tooth down here is really rounded from hitting a rock, yeah, you got to grind on it a little bit more. So what I'll do is I'll do like half of it the first pass, let it cool off, and then go back. But I've never had a tooth get brittle where it breaks off, never. So just not a problem. What other thing? Oh, the other thing is you know, I do test them. These are cat claw sharp, and when you touch them, they just sticks right into they just stick. You can just feel it. I mean, they just grab it instantly. So I know they're good and sharp. And after you do it a while, you get a feel for it. So when you're sliding the stone in and out, when you first go in, a lot of times you can feel it's kind of rough, or it doesn't slide very good. As soon as it gets sharp, it just slides real easy. And the thing that you notice too is, as I was sharpening, I start with the tooth, with the bit, the stone, and I'm going back and forth, and that's so it doesn't get rounded on me. I want to have an even wear all the way through, so as you're going on it, it wears evenly. The other thing you probably noticed, as I'm sharpening, I'm just barely touching the stone to the tooth. I'm just tickling it across the edge there. I'm not reefing on it at all. And you notice the bar and the chain, they don't really move because I'm not pushing hard. When you use a file, you got to push. The whole thing is rocking on you, and your chain is twisting back and forth. You know, you get that rocking back and forth. And until you get really good with a file, you can get that momentum and that kind of rhythm that you know what you're doing as far as how much the bar moves or the teeth move on you when you're sliding the file back and forth. So you kind of get used to it. But this is way easier. You just don't have to put much pressure on it at all. And again, I'll let the machine do the work. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I have 4 different Dremels, and the one that I use the most now is this one. It's a 3000. It's a newer one, and I really like it. It's got a nice variable speed on it. I don't know, it was like 60, 70 bucks. I know they're not that bad. This one I really like too. This one is nice. There's a 4300. This one was closer to 100 bucks. It actually has a light on it, so you can turn a light on in the front here. It's got a little bitty LED light. And I use this one quite a bit too. But I've been using this newer one more often now. This is a really old one I have. This is a Multi-Pro. This is the one I generally use for taking the rakers down. And when I'm in the woods or on location, I take this one. It's an 8100. And now I think there's an 8300, if I remember right, that they have. This is the battery pack. And apparently the 8300 has 30% more battery life. That's what they claim anyway. So there's the battery pack. It just pops in. And so with this battery pack, the one that I have on this 8100, I can get for sure 3 sharpenings, sometimes as many as 4, even 5 sharpenings when I'm on location. And I take this with me. And I thought about getting another battery pack too. That's actually something I would like to do, and have 2 batteries charged for when I go cut on location. So it would be kind of nice to have that. But anyway, yeah, so there you go. And like I say, the new one I think is the 8300, and they're about 100 bucks, the ones that have the battery pack, the portable one. So there you go. There's the Dremels. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is depth gauges, the rakers or depth gauge, whatever you want to call it. What I do is I normally don't have to take them down too much because I'm cutting oak primarily, so they naturally wear down pretty good. But about every maybe second or third sharpening, I'll take the depth gauge here and I'll rest it down there, and I'll just kind of feel like this one's way down there. I can feel it's plenty far down. Yeah, it's not sticking up at all. So if I feel where it's sticking up a little bit, I don't even use a file on these. I use a Dremel on the depth gauges too, the rakers. So I can see, you know, this one's fine, but I'm just going to show you for demonstration purposes. So that's the reason why I have multiple Dremels too. Now this is the one I'm using for sharpening the teeth. It's got a brand new bit on it. This is an old one here. It's all wore down. You can see it's much smaller in comparison if you look. You can see it's wore way down. This one back here is wore down even more. You can see it's real concave there. So what I do is when I feel that it's up a little bit, I will take, and I'll test 4 or 5 teeth. I'll take the depth gauge. I feel, yeah, it's definitely sticking up, and I'll just go like 1, 2, 3, 4 times like that. Then I'll put the depth gauge back on top. I'll see it, and yep, it's down low enough. So I know about 4 strokes, and so then I do the same thing on every tooth. I just do a 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, it's just kind of a feel thing. You might want to do it once or twice just to get a feel for how far you're going, because you don't want to take them down too much. But I like them to be down just a little bit so that for sure you're getting some cutting action, and you're making sure you're cutting enough material away. So yeah, that's just, it's down there. It doesn't really need it. I can just feel it. Even if I used a file, it wouldn't need it. This one's just a little bit high right here. So I'll start up the Dremel here, and I'll sharpen this one. I mean, I'll take this one down just a little bit here so you can see, but this is about all I do. Oops. I'll start it up here. There you go. That's about all I do. And so now let's see, because that was the one that was up. Yep, now it's down there. Now it's just below. I can just feel that there's nothing there. It's not sticking up between the middle here. It's not high like it was. So that's how I take the rakers down, and I do that after I sharpen, because some of the teeth, if you get a tooth that's real bad and you got to take it down more, you're losing some of that tooth height. So you're lowering your tooth, so then the raker needs to come down just a little bit too. And again, I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I go 2 or 3, 4 sharpenings before I have to even touch them. But I like to be a little more aggressive. I don't want it to be, you know, where it's just stopping on the wood, but I like to have them so that I'm getting enough material removed. And after you sharpen a couple times like this, you'll see that it's easier, and you kind of know if you got a sharp chain right away. As soon as I start cutting, and I'm sure a lot of you who cut, you know, as soon as you touch that saw, and you can just feel it, it wants to almost like pull the whole power heads of the saw in, you know, forward. You got to kind of hang on to it, and it'll just start biting, and your chips are nice and big. So that's kind of how I do it. That is pretty much everything that I do for sharpening. So that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Please hit the like, subscribe button. You know what to do. And I will see you tomorrow in the wood yard. And we're going to do some cutting. And in between now and then, you should get outside and get cutting. Good night, Irene.